Hands up, you damn ape. Officer Rick Dane barked, stepping out of his cruiser like a man on a mission. Across the street stood a sharply dressed black man, mid-30s, speaking into a phone outside a Metro Cell store. Navy blazer, polished shoes, leather briefcase. Calm, composed, everything Rick hated. What's a monkey in a suit doing here? This ain't Wall Street. He spat out the window, tossing his half-finished coffee back into the cup holder. Rage simmered in his gut, like fire on dry brush. They think they belong anywhere now. Rick didn't ask questions. He didn't check ID. He drew his pistol and crossed the street with swaggering authority, hatred in every step. The man turned toward him, phone still pressed to his ear, brow slightly furrowed. "Excuse me?" he said, calm but alert. "You deaf too?" Rick shouted. "Drop the briefcase. Hand where I can see him. Get on the damn ground." The man slowly lowered his phone. "I'm not armed." "What's this about?" Rick scoffed. "What's this about?" "It's about you thinking you can strut around here like you belong." His finger hovered over the trigger. "This block ain't for you." People started to notice. A woman paused with groceries in hand. A man held his child close. Two teenagers stood frozen near a bike rack. Phones came out. Recording. "Officer, he hasn't done anything," someone called out. Rick ignored it. "You think just 'cause you got on some fancy suit, you're better than me?" His voice cracked with fury. "You're nothing but a parasite playing dress-up." Still, the man stood tall. "You're making a mistake." Rick's hand trembled with adrenaline. "Oh, I'll show you a mistake. One wrong twitch, and you'll be a chalk outline." The man tilted his head. "You sure you want to do this?" "I don't care who you are." "Maybe you should." The tension thickened like storm clouds. Rick was breathing hard. The man didn't flinch. His briefcase was still clutched in one hand, his other raised in cautious surrender. A teenage girl whispered to her friend, "He hasn't even moved. Why's that cop losing it?" Then came the shout from behind the grocery window, "911, please." There's an officer pointing a gun at a man who's not resisting. He's yelling slurs. "Please send help fast." Rick didn't hear it. He was locked in, his worldview challenged, his rage spilling into action. "You'll never be one of us," he growled. "You belong in chains." The man blinked slowly. "Last chance, officer." "Walk away." That pushed Rick over the edge. Bang. The shot echoed across the street. Gasps, screams. The man dropped to one knee, clutching his left shoulder, blazer instantly blooming red. He didn't scream, just groaned through clenched teeth, as if willing himself not to show pain. Rick stood tall, chest heaving, gun still raised. "There, that'll teach you some respect." But the silence that followed was unnatural. It wasn't fear, it was disbelief, then sirens. Fast, close point, two squad cars and a black unmarked SUV skidded to a stop. Doors flew open, guns drawn, but not at the bleeding M.N.A.T. Rick. "Put the weapon down, Officer Dane," one officer barked. "Now!" Rick froze, eyes darting. "What?" "He's a suspect." He's a damn N." "Drop it," another officer roared. For the first time, Rick's hand trembled. "He's the threat." Rick shouted, "I'm the one in uniform." The man on the ground lifted his head, lips pale, blood on his teeth, but smiled. "You've got it all wrong." Rick cried. "He provoked me." "Provoked you by existing?" came a voice from behind a badge. The senior officer approached, expression hard. "You just shot an unarmed man in cold blood. He didn't resist. He didn't flee. And you used lethal force anyway." "I was doing my job," Rick yelled. The injured man coughed. "You'll regret this. All of you who let him wear that badge." The officer kneeling beside the victim said, "Sir, we need to stop the bleeding. Medic is 2 minutes out." But the man raised a weak hand. "Call Chief Richardson. Tell him the federal auditor has arrived." The kneeling officer blinked. "I what?" The man's voice was strained but precise. "Tell him a man sent by Washington to investigate corruption in Precinct 8 was just shot by the very thing we came to root out." Rick's mouth fell open. The name, the suit, the confidence. "You're lying," he whispered. The man's gaze pierced through him. "Am I?" The other officers stood frozen. Radios crackled. One of them backed away, hand going to his shoulder mic. "We need command. Now." Rick dropped the gun, but it was too late. The man slumped over as paramedics rushed in. Blood soaked the pavement. Cameras were everywhere. Live streams, eyewitnesses, and yet something else lingered in the air. This wasn't over. Not for Rick, not for the city, and certainly not for the man bleeding on the sidewalk. Rick stumbled back 2 steps. Lie. It can't be. One of them can't be in the government. No, an N-word like you. Agents moved fast. Rick's gun hit the pavement with a thud. He was shoved to the ground, screaming. No, he provoked me. He's just a damn suit. This can't be happening. No one listened anymore. Point one officer picked up the radio. Confirmed. It's him. The agent treating the injured man looked up, gentler now. Sir, ambulance is en route. Hold tight. The man, blood bubbling from his lips, gave a faint nod. That, I will say. 3 minutes stretched like 30. He was lifted onto a stretcher, suit soaked in red, breath shallow but steady. Paramedics called codes into radios while clamping gauze to his shoulder. His eyes stayed open, defiant, refusing to let the story end there. At Kings County Hospital, doctors sprang into action. A nurse cut away his clothing. The entry wound was clean but deep. Blood loss. Pressure. One surgeon narrowed his eyes. Bullet missed the lung by a centimeter. If it had hit lower, he'd be gone. Prep for chest tube and stabilization. Beeping monitors filled the room. Syringes. Oxygen tubes. The attending nurse paused, studying his face. Doctor, I think this man works for the Department of Justice. The lead doctor didn't flinch. Then he better not die. 1 hour later, 5 men in dark suits stood silently in the waiting area beside an NYPD colonel. No words, just tension. An agent approached and handed the colonel a file straight from Washington. The colonel scanned it. Oh my God. Name, Alan DeHarris. Position, Principal Auditor, U.S. Department of Justice. Division, Oversight and Reform of Police Institutions with Histories of Systemic Abuse. The man Rick Dane shot was not only a federal official. He was the lead auditor in charge of exposing corruption and racism in police departments across the nation. He had landed in New York that very morning. Precinct 8 had been his first stop, and Rick had made his job easier than expected. Rick Dane sat handcuffed in a holding cell. No uniform, no weapon, just a sweat-stained white t-shirt and hollow eyes. He wasn't yelling anymore. He was quiet now, breath shallow, like someone trying to outrun the truth. The door opened. An agent stepped in and dropped a thick file on the table. He didn't speak. He just opened it. Look at it, Officer Dane. Rick glanced up. Inside were photos, transcripts, citizen complaints, racist slurs, body cam footage, unfiled reports. His past stared back at him. They're going to destroy me, he whispered. The agent shook his head. No, Dane. You destroyed yourself. We just brought the light. Alan Harris stood near the window, for still in his arm, wrapped in a hospital gown over heavy bandages. His left shoulder ached, but his phone was in hand. A message flashed on screen. The press still knows nothing. Do we authorize the leak? He paused, then typed. Not yet. Tomorrow. I want to be standing when the truth breaks loose. A knock at the door. A young officer stepped in, hesitant. Mr. Harris? The chief wants to know, do you intend to continue the audit? Alan looked at him, gaze firm. I didn't come to look. I came to clean. And now I have the perfect place to start. The officer nodded, swallowing. Sir, how did you know Dane would be like that? Alan answered slowly. I didn't know. Pause. But he didn't need to be provoked. It was enough that I existed. Dozens of microphones. Cameras flashing. A crowd silent in anticipation. Alan Harris stepped onto the stage, left arm in a sling, wearing a dark suit, jaw set firm. He scanned the room, then spoke. Yesterday, I was shot by a police officer while performing a federal duty. I was targeted because of my skin color. I was called a pest. I was called a slave. Then, he pulled the trigger. Gasps. No movement. No whispers. This officer didn't know who I was. But it shouldn't have mattered. My name, my title, my suit, none of that should be required for basic humanity. The fact that I was black was enough for him to become judge, jury, and attempted executioner. He leaned into the mic. Effective immediately, a full federal audit is underway on Precinct 8. All personnel will be reviewed. All complaints, past and present, will be investigated, and any evidence of systemic abuse, racial profiling, or cover-up will be prosecuted as a federal crime. He paused. Flashes exploded around him. Some wept. Others clenched fists under the table. Alan Harris took a final breath. I didn't come here to speak. I came to tear out the rot by the roots. And this is only the beginning. Rick Dane stared through the tiny window of his cell. No shouting, no defiance, just trembling that a guard handed him a letter, stamped with the Department of Justice seal. Inside, one line stood out in bold. You were not the victim of a mistake. You were the example.